Humans have always had a fascination with the terrifying and the bizarre, telling stories of terror to each other in order to feel the thrill of fear. These stories are told around campfires, in books, and in television and film. But in the internet age, one of the most popular ways to share scary stories are creepypastas. Hello, I'm Andrew Boyd, and though I live out a horror story every day while trapped in this lifeless void, I can still appreciate a good scary story. These are the top 5 creepypastas you need to read in 2023. Number 5. Candle Cove. Candle Cove is a creepypasta told in the format of a blog post. It starts out with users reminiscing about a television show they all watched as children. They talk about the various puppets and the relatively low production values in a show about a cowardly pirate trying to search for buried treasure while being terrified by the villain of the piece, Skin Taker. The users realize how bizarre and terrifying the show really was, and wonder how a show like this ended up on children's television. Eventually, one of the users responds with information about the show that puts the entire thing into a terrifying new perspective. Here is a brief excerpt from the story to give you a taste of what you are in for. Yeah, I think so. Remember his mouth didn't open and close? His jaw just slid back and forth. I remember the little girl said, "Why does your mouth move like that?" And the Skin Taker didn't look at the girl, but at the camera, and said, "To grind your skin." Oh, I'm so relieved that other people remember this terrible show. I used to have this awful memory. A bad dream I had where the opening jingle ended, the show faded in from black, and all the characters were there, but the camera was just cutting to each of their faces, and they were just screaming. And the puppets and marionettes were flailing spastically, and just all screaming and screaming. The girl was just moaning and crying like she had been through hours of this. I woke up many times from that nightmare. I used to wet the bed when I had it. I don't think that was a dream. I remember that was an episode. No, not possible. There was no plot or anything. I mean, literally, just standing in place crying and screaming for the whole show. Maybe I'm manufacturing the memory because you said that, but I swear to God, I remember seeing what you described. They just screamed. Oh God, yes, the little girl, Janice. I remember seeing her shake, and the Skin Taker screaming through his gnashing teeth, his jaw careening so wildly I thought it would come off of its wire hinges. I turned it off, and it was the last time I watched. I ran to tell my brother, and we didn't have the courage to turn it back on. This creepypasta is immensely popular, and was the basis for the first season of the television program Channel Zero, showing that the story's horror is enough to transcend its internet roots. Number 4. Smile Dog. Smile Dog tells the story of a young internet journalist trying to uncover the mystery behind an internet rumor of a photo of a smiling dog that apparently causes anyone who sees it to be haunted by an evil spirit who will only leave you alone if you show the photo to someone else. The man eventually tracks down a woman who claims to have been haunted by the spirit for 15 years, and she warns him never to look at the photo before ending her own life. He then checks his email and discovers that someone else has sent the photo to him. Here's a brief excerpt. According to my email client, there was one file attachment called naturally smile.jpg. I considered downloading it for some time. It was most likely a fake. I imagined, and even if it weren't, I was never wholly convinced of smile.jpg's peculiar powers. Mary E's account had shaken me, yes, but she was probably mentally unbalanced anyway. After all, how could a single image do what smile.jpg was said to accomplish? What sort of creature was it that could break one's mind with only the power of the eye? And if such things were patently absurd, then why did the legend exist at all? If I downloaded the image, if I looked at it, and if Mary turned out to be correct, if smile.jpg came to me in my dreams demanding I spread the word, what would I do? Would I live my life as Mary had, fighting against the urge to give in until I died? Or would I simply spread the word, eager to be put to rest? And if I chose the latter route, how could I do it? Whom could I burden in turn? It is an eerie story, reminiscent of The Ring, and a quick and fun read for anyone wishing to be suitably spooked. Number 3. Gateway of the Mind. Gateway of the Mind is a short but effective creepypasta that tells the story of a scientific experiment gone wrong. The scientists believe that that sensory deprivation will allow a man to converse with God. So, they take a volunteer and put him through a surgery that severs all of his senses, leaving him unable to feel anything or do anything except tell the scientists what he is experiencing. At first, it seems to be working, and the man seems able to talk with the dead, but things soon take a dark turn. After a week of conversing with the deceased through his thoughts, the subject became distressed, saying the voices were overwhelming. In every waking moment, his consciousness was bombarded by hundreds of voices that refused to leave him alone. He frequently threw himself against the wall, trying to elicit a pain response. He begged the scientists for sedatives so he could escape the voices by sleeping. This tactic worked for 3 days until he started having severe night terrors. The subject repeatedly said he could see and hear the deceased in his dreams. Only a day later, the subject began to scream and claw at his non-functional eyes, hoping to sense something in the physical world. The hysterical subject now said the voices of the dead were deafening and hostile, speaking of hell and the end of the world. At one point he yelled, "No heaven, no forgiveness," for 5 hours straight. He continually begged to be killed, but the scientists were convinced that he was close to establishing contact with God. It is a disturbing story about scientists playing God with forces they don't understand, all in an effort to meet God, and it is well worth a read. Number 2, The Expressionless. The Expressionless is a short but creepy and extremely violent creepypasta about a strange-looking woman who shows up at a hospital exhibiting strange and violent behavior that only gets more and more disturbing as the story goes. Here is the beginning of the story to get you hooked. In June 1972, a woman appeared in Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, California, in nothing but a white, blood-covered gown. Now this in itself should not be too surprising, as people often have accidents nearby and come to the nearest hospital for medical attention. But there were 2 things that caused people who saw her to vomit and flee in terror. The first being that she wasn't exactly human. She resembled something close to a mannequin, but had the dexterity and fluidity of a normal human being. Her face was as flawless as a mannequin, devoid of eyebrows and smeared in makeup. There was a kitten clamped in her jaws, so unnaturally tight that no teeth could be seen, and the blood was still squirting out over her gown and onto the floor. She then pulled it out of her mouth, tossed it aside, and collapsed. The story only gets darker and more violent as it goes on, so if that is the kind of story you love, this may be the tale for you. Number 1, Baby Monitors. Baby Monitors is a suitably spooky creepypasta about a boy who discovers that if he buys a baby monitor, he can prank new parents by hijacking their monitor's frequency to scare them into thinking that their baby is in danger. He goes to different neighborhoods on his bike, messing with people until one night he picks the wrong house. Here is a brief excerpt. "Just as I was about to give up and leave, I heard a strange, moist gurgling sound coming from the monitor. The quiet, rhythmic snores ceased, and I assumed the baby had woken up and was about to start crying. Instead, a man spoke to me. 'You're the one being watched now, Juan,' he said softly. My stomach pirouetted at his words. How did he know my name? I felt sick. Something was very wrong, and I could feel it in my bones. I glanced up at the nursery window and saw a silhouette standing there watching me. Had he been there the whole time? The air was thick and difficult to inhale, though perhaps fear was making it hard to breathe. My body quivered uncontrollably as a sense of dread poured into every inch of me. I climbed on my bike, pedaling desperately to get away. Part of me thought I was overreacting, but the overwhelming need to flee overpowered my rational mind. 'You can't run. I know where you live, Juan,' continued the man, even as I turned the corner. I flew down the street, not stopping until I reached a busy boulevard, surrounded by cars and a few late-night joggers. I felt safe. 'Your hoodie will run red with your blood, boy,' whispered the man, still talking through the baby monitor in my pocket. It is a satisfying story about someone learning the hard way not to engage in scaring people if you cannot handle being scared yourself, and it is a quick and very fun read. With that, another list has come to an end. The dark forces that run this evil dimension have asked that I remind you to like, comment, and subscribe, lest you find yourself the subject of your own creepypasta. I'm off to keep hiding from the demons that inhabit this void, but perhaps we will meet again soon, and I can regale you with more tales of the macabre and the disturbing here on Top 5 Scary Videos.